Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of the Overdose Peak Season Power series. We built this 6-part series for digital and e commerce professionals who want to sharpen their peak season performance. Each episode is packed with practical insights you can put to work straight away. If you've missed any so far, you can find the full lineup on our site at overdose.digital. And our door always is open to your curiosity, your thoughts, and your questions. I'm Bige, Digital Marketing Director of Australia at Overdose, and joining me today is Ash, our lovely agency partner lead at Google. Over the next 20 minutes, we'll be diving into preparing your Google Ads account for the peak, followed by a quick Q&A. Let's get into it. Before we kick off with the agenda, Ash, would you like to introduce yourself quickly and how long you've been at Google and how you work with Overdose?
I would love to. Firstly, thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting and a different forum to which I'm used to operating in. But I am Ash Smith. I am a British export, dad of two. I have been at Google for almost 6 years, and I've within that time, worked with both brands directly and agencies to help drive growth. And in my current role as agency partner lead, I work with amazing partners like Overdose to make sure that you are getting the best out of the Google ecosystem for your customers.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I'm sure you're seeing me way more than you should. I always message you. We always have something to talk about. So we really appreciate our ongoing partnership as well. Today, we are going to touch on what to expect from 2025 peak season and a few tactical tips around how to set up your Google Ads account for success, mostly focusing on the shopping feed side and health. Now, I'll hand it over to Ash to take us through some internal Google data and expectations from the peak season.
Amazing, thank you. This is exciting. So as I mentioned, I've been at Google for nearly 6 years. So I've actually had the opportunity to be across this type of narrative and to see how peak season has played out over that time. So as opposed to what you're seeing today, which is, as opposed to it just being a snapshot in time, this is increasingly turning into a longitudinal study where we can see how things develop and how consumers really embrace peak season. But let's talk about like 3 key themes that really should inform our approach and our approach to planning for 2025. So the first of these themes, and we'll unpack these as we go through, but is cautious optimism. So despite global uncertainties, we're seeing that consumer confidence in Australia is stabilizing. We're optimistic for continued breathing room when it comes to things like interest rates. And this presents a real opportunity for us as consumers will have more money to spend, especially during the holiday season and peak season. The challenge, however, is that we will face, and we are seeing, increased competition from lots of different brands vying for that same spend. Second, we're seeing deal seeking continue. So consumers are still looking for value, which is a habit that is not going to disappear. So this means that peak sales moments are not only like a huge opportunity to drive volume, but the challenge is balancing price and margins, especially when we see low-cost marketplaces like AliExpress or Temu continuing to grow and make shapes in the Australian market. And then finally, timing is everything. Consumers are becoming more planned with their holiday shopping, right? We know that Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and peak season is a thing. So there's an opportunity to get ahead of the curve with early deals, strong brand positioning, but the challenge is super clear, right? If we don't start early, then competitors will. So probably on the next slide, it would be useful to take a look back at 2024 and call on some of the key trends that we saw from peak a year ago. In 2024, consumers were highly considered, right? Last year, over half said they would air caution when it came to spending. And they had this keen focus, or they said they had this keen focus on only the essentials leading up to Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I think probably something I always say as well. But like once the deals started to land, people started to take advantage of them across all categories. So whilst people said they were going to hold back, in reality, spend went up and people took advantage of price drops for large and small purchases alike. But it wasn't just a spending spree. Research has shown that the last year, the amount of researched holiday purchases increased while the number of spontaneous purchases decreased. So it's also about gift giving. Now, it's not very often I get excited about line graphs, but this is where we're seeing data really tell a story about the importance and growth of peak season. And furthermore, there's a reason why we've been kicking off peak season conversations earlier this year. And that's because what we're seeing is peak season expanding, right? We're increasingly seeing as each year passes that peak is no longer contained to just a few days or just a month. It's a journey that stretches from October through to early January. And to borrow from an alpine reference, think of it as like a mountain with three key sections. So first, we've got this really broad base where more and more brands are participating in Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So here you can see that each year we're trending above previous years when it comes to retailer consideration. But this isn't limited to retail anymore. We're seeing all sorts of brands join in on the fun. Even BYD, the electric car manufacturer, they had a Black Friday deal last year. Second, we're seeing this evolving slope of the peak season, this long climb from base camp to what we call like the messy middle. And that's the period leading up to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, where consumers are actively researching and they're comparing deals and they're figuring out what they want to pull the trigger on. And if you compare that alongside previous years, you can see each key sales event along the way is longer than before. So as retailers, you need to get an early start to capture mind and wallet share before this extended incline kicks into gear. And then when we kind of get to that final ascent to the summit, this is where all that effort around building brand, winning consideration can really pay off and carry us forward and up that final peak. And this is where there's a huge opportunity, but we need to make sure that we're set up for success with things like feed health, account best practice, demand-led budgeting. But Bige, I know we're going to kind of touch on that in the second section of this presentation. Yeah. So back to 2025 and what we can expect. So you don't need another person to say we've all been on a roller coaster ride over the last few years, navigating the twists and turns of COVID, increased interest rates, cost of living crisis. But this sets the scene for a new trend emerging in 2025, where there's this unique blend of welcome stability that meets fresh disruption. So let's talk about that disruption piece first. After challenging periods like the ones we've just emerged from, that value-seeking, deal-seeking mindset sticks around for quite some time, and it's not showing any sign of going anywhere just yet. And as retailers, this is what we need to lean into as consumers will be increasingly receptive to deals during peak, but they want to be confident they're getting the best deal and they're getting the right product for their needs. So we need to strategize around both value and relevancy being key this year. And even though things are disrupted, there are some stabilizing forces at play. So in the first half of 2025, consumer confidence has been fairly stable, and we've seen that echoed through business sentiment. We've welcomed rate cuts over the last few quarters, and I'm crossing my fingers for more, perhaps naively, at the end of this month. I think it's the 30th. And this means we kind of find ourselves in this era of cautious optimism. And this inflection point, this combination of value-seeking mindset, but with considered optimism, sets the scene for what will hopefully be quite an exciting peak season ahead. So a few slides ago, I obviously alluded to this disruption, and one major example of this is the sheer number of international competitors we're now seeing in Australia, many of which are brands operating out of China that are offering deals that are difficult to compete with. Last year, some of these brands saw huge growth, like Temu and Shein. I realize I've been calling it Shine for some time. I'm really out of touch. Shein, and this year it's continued to grow. But it's not just Chinese brands that we need to be aware of. So one US-based online marketplace you might have heard of, Bige, that starts with the letter A, was one of the most searched brands last year and had very strong double-digit growth. So for comparison, our largest search brand, Kmart, only grew 3% year on year, and of course we all still very much love Kmart.
I was just there yesterday, so yeah, it's shocking. It's only 3% year on
I guess
year.
it's off a big base, but still.
Yeah.
A lot of questions that we field, and it can be challenging to answer around peak, is like, when do we go live? How do we manage activity accordingly? And this chart shows the share of generic searches and versus the share of brand searches over peak period. So from late August through to early January. And what we can see is that consumers are searching generically right up until Black Friday, Cyber Monday sales days themselves. And this kind of shows us two things, right? One, from a generic POV, consumers are in this discovery mindset from now until peak, right? So as a brand, if you get your upper funnel marketing right, your brand can be top of mind during that research phase and top of mind when it comes to convert. Like, example I like to draw on is a brand like Koala, right? How often do you buy a mattress? Maybe once every 5, every 7, every 10 years. I know they sell other things, but still they have firmly entrenched themselves in a consideration set for me when it comes to something like mattresses. They're a really good example of how, when it's time to buy, they have established themselves through upper funnel marketing to ensure that they're capitalizing on that intent. Secondly, you can kind of see these two peaks. I don't think I can annotate the screen, but prior to Black Friday, and this is fake Friday. So this is essentially people looking in advance, preparing for the big event, right? So what products am I interested in? What brands am I interested in? Where's the best deal? However, this in itself presents a really great opportunity to capture demand and convert early. Like a personal anecdote, I mentioned I've got 2 kids. I had a very crusty sofa upstairs, a really badly trampled rug, and I've got my mum coming to visit in a couple of weeks. Like, I was desperate to give my living room a bit of a rezhuzh. And I was looking at Eve online, King, all those brands. I noticed that Eve had a showroom in Surrey Hills, and I went in, sat on it, got to experience it, and I asked the sales assistant, I was like, do you have any visibility on when your Black Friday cyber deals might land and what they might look like? And she was like, yes, and we never discount by too much. And so with my mum's arrival impending, I was like, I'm just going to buy it now. But it just goes to show, certainly kind of in the case of me, like, I know Black Friday Cyber Monday is coming. Consumers are getting increasingly savvy, and so, you know, they're doing their research, trying to figure out where the best deal might be and when to buy. So when it comes to that kind of behavior and things like fake Friday, there's an opportunity to convert. And if you are a brand and you're not live and you're not ready to capitalize on that, you're going to miss out to your competitors. So I've rambled a fair bit, but on the next slide, I think, and just to kind of close out my section, I'd be remiss not to, of course, kind of bring this all back to the Google ecosystem. So during this busy period, Aussies turned to YouTube and Google as the number one place to cross-check information. And if you think if somebody asks you a question, you don't know the answer, or you don't trust what they're saying, you turn to Google. Second, it's the number one place to make informed decisions. Thirdly, it's a place where they can trust creators above and beyond other platforms. And fourth, it's a place where we go to discover, to research, and to purchase. So furthermore, and people are doing this across screens and across different need states in what we're calling the 4 S's: searching, scrolling, streaming, and shopping. And Google and YouTube are the only place where you can reach people doing all 4 of those things interchangeably. So I hope that gives everyone watching an insight into what we can expect to see moving forward this peak season. But Bige, I know you're going to share some of your expertise on how to ensure activity is set up and humming for success. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Ash. Sorry, I think that was a great segue into how we can take that awesome insights and internal data from Google and put it into action, and what kind of things that we should prioritize in our Google Ads account to set up for success. Your measurement compass is upgraded by your first party data. Especially in the age of AI, it's literally the fuel for your algorithm to help you get to the top. And it starts with three things. First one is your Google tag. I'm sure we've all heard about this before. But for those who are not familiar with it, it's a piece of code on your website that collects all the vital information about how your customers are interacting with your site. It's your absolute first step. It's how you build a trusted decision engine with your first party data. Now, second, enhanced conversions. This fills the measurement gaps left by privacy changes, giving AI more data to work with, which means supercharging your performance for growth. And lastly, customer match. Think of this as your VIP pass to leverage your own data, like your email lists, to find and re engage your most valuable customers. It's a goldmine for growth when applied with smart bidding campaigns.
Bige,
Now, I want to.
Can I touch on that previous slide a second? Because I think it's
Go for
like
it.
this type of thing is fundamental, not only to ensure that, like, as marketers, your activity and your hard work gets recognized and you're recording all the conversions that can be attributed to Google Ads, but in an era of AI where it's deeply entrenched in all of our products, like quality inputs equate to quality outputs. So these are really, really important foundations for which to build a functional, highly optimized Google Ads campaign as well.
Yeah, and sometimes our clients or even prospects that we meet might not have internal teams to be able to set it up. It could be like a lack of dev team or data staff. But I remember in the past, you guys were able to provide support for that. And we always have that opportunity as well to tap you guys in and get your support from the Google Tech team. So again, we appreciate that from your side as well. Now, I want to talk about how to master the shopping ad auction. It's a key part of our strategy at Overdose, and our goal is simple: to have your products uprank or show up higher and more often in search results. To do that, we need to focus on three main pillars: offer quality, bid level, and relevance. First, let's look at your offer quality. That's the foundation of a great shopping ad campaign. The most important thing here is your product data. Our job is to give Google as much information as we possibly can about your products. Think of it like this: the more detail we provide, things like accurate titles, brand, color, size, and product type, the better Google's algorithm can understand what we're selling and match it to the right customer searches. High quality, complete data is what gives us the best practice and leverage to win any auction. Next, we have bid level and relevance. They really work hand in hand. Our bidding strategy should be about valuing our product as accurately as possible. We want to bid what the products are truly worth to us. We don't want to overbid and waste money, but we don't want to underbid and miss out on valuable traffic. We have relevance, which comes down to our shopping feed information. We are going to talk about this with some examples in the upcoming slides, but in short, this is where we make our product description customer-centric. Instead of just listing features, we need to think about how a customer searches. What language do they use? What problems are they trying to solve? By using relevant customer-focused language, we make our ads more appealing to people and more relevant to their search queries as well. When it comes to getting a click, your ad needs to have three things: First, a high quality image. In this example on the screen, we need to see the bike clearly, also maybe even from different angles or in a real world setting. Second, a clear and well written title. The one you see on the slide is a decent example. It immediately tells me the USP, product type, make, brand, and key details like the number of speeds. It's direct, it's informative, and it uses all 150 characters to its advantage. And finally, a rich description. It's the information that turns a casual shopper into a confident buyer. The bottom line is these small details are everything when it comes to your shopping feed quality. They are the difference between a product that gets lost in the feed and the one that gets the click and drives a sale. That said, it's always tempting to just focus on what the customer sees on the front end, like the image and the title. But a robust product feed is the one that influences both the front and the back end. And that's where Overdose and Google comes in. On the front end, it improves your user experience, which leads to better conversion rates and efficiency. On the back end, it directly impacts how Google serves your ads, leading to better relevance, mapping, and reach. Look at the product type attribute as an example. A customer might not see this directly, but providing it helps Google match your products to the right queries. So please don't ignore any attribute you have information for. Think of this next one like you're turning your ads into a powerful billboard. Value propositions like free shipping, product ratings, or merchant promotions that essentially differentiate your products and build trust with customers should all be maximized. While the guiding principle for best class titles are brand plus product type plus attributes, how you actually apply it changes based on what you sell and the vertical that you play in. For instance, for apparel, it's about the customer centric details, such as your brand comes first, then gender, product type, is it a dress, a t shirt, a sweater, and then attributes like color or the size. But if we have a look at electronics, it's about the technical specs and model numbers. It's possibly your brand plus your attribute and your product type and the model. The main takeaway is to think like your customer. What information is important to them when they are searching for a product in your category? By structuring your titles to include those key attributes, you'll make your products more relevant and more likely to be clicked on. And lastly, a healthy feed will boost your competitiveness. When your product data is accurate and complete, it helps you improve your ad rank, which allows you to compete with players, larger ones in the market, like Ash shared a few slides ago. As you can see, adding the key feed health signals, things like annotations we just discussed, or detailed product attributes, can increase your click-through rate by up to 5%. That doesn't only bring more traffic, but also leads to better conversions and a stronger ROI. Second, a healthy feed will drive budget efficiency. When your products are matched to more relevant searches, you get more value out of your existing ad spend. By optimizing your feed, you can drive traffic at a lower cost with a reduced cost per click up to 5%. This allows you to better utilize your budget and reach more potential customers for the same amount of money. Finally, a healthy feed helps you generate consumer trust. When your ads have all the correct information, things like accurate product images, clear pricing, and helpful annotations like ratings or return policies, it builds credibility and strengthens your brand. Consumers see these feed health signals as highly important in driving trust and ultimately in making their purchase decisions in such a crowded time and market. Trust is a key factor, and this is how we build it from the very first interaction with your ad. These are the main key takeaways that we wanted to share with you in today's episode. Now it's your time to send any Q&As that you might have. We'll give you around 10 seconds. If you had any questions, please add them as a comment in the live broadcast. While we wait for that, Ash, do you have a list for your Black Friday shopping yet?
No, I spent all my money on that so far.
Fair, yeah. Yeah, you should have waited for their sale.
Inevitably, I will do though. I've got time to think of stuff. I don't need excuses to do shopping. I think
Yeah.
while people have a think or write about questions, you had a slide where you talked about the importance of quality images. Certainly in a feed, it's
Yeah.
really important to your Google ads as well. So I'd be remiss not to probably talk about Asset Studio, which is it's a centralized hub within Google Ads to help advertisers create, manage, and enhance creative assets. Within that, we're increasingly seeing AI-powered tools to help you generate product imagery, edit images with things like text prompts, like change backgrounds, remove elements, add elements. So it would encourage anyone and everyone to have a play with that if you're not familiar with it.
Yeah, that's a really good shout. Also, next to that Asset Studio, one of our team members, I won't be able to give the brand name, but we've been testing Nano Banana, Gemini's new tool, to place one of their new dresses in like a real world setting. It does shockingly good. We really liked it. Maybe we might use it even. So yeah, also I would recommend exploring that.
Oh, that's exciting.
Okay, we have a question. Would you recommend Google Shopping or Performance Max, or both at the same time? This is a really good question, and we hear this quite often. How we usually tackle this is, if something hasn't worked in the past, it doesn't mean that it won't ever work for you again. What I would recommend is testing them at the same time before making a decision. How we tackle it usually is we select a key product category from your feed, and Overdose also manages and maintains your feed to get them up to the best practices. And until then, we don't really launch a test. And understand your key measurement metrics and compare the results against that. We recommend not launching a product type that's really key or that would have a high impact on your performance. Let's say if you have a sale running, or if you need to get rid of some stock from your warehouse, we wouldn't recommend touching that because it's really important for you to get the ball rolling. It could be some low margin category that you want to test it on. But essentially, when we run them together, we usually see a higher return on Performance Max, but this is mostly in the apparel industry. I highly recommend doing your own tests depending on the vertical you are in. But in short, I wouldn't just scratch one for the other. It's always good to test them simultaneously. I'm not sure, Ash, if you'd like to add anything on top of that.
No, I think you've touched on it. You've covered it really well. I guess maybe taking a step back, and I touched on this earlier on in the presentation. But when I talk, we know that customer journeys aren't linear anymore. I mentioned searching, scrolling, streaming, and shopping. Like that is where PMax presents a real opportunity to intercept, irregardless of where your customer is, both from a screens and a devices, a need state, or a funnel strategy as well. So like I would always recommend having a play with PMax, trialing that if you're not doing it already. Certainly it's the one that is I guess the easier lift, in the sense that it doesn't require quite as many optimizations, but there's a use case for both.
Yeah, and we've always had candid conversations around that. Sorry, there's one more question. What level of budget headroom would you recommend during Black Friday, Cyber Monday? Oof, that's a difficult one. Like definitely minimum 15 to 20% from my experience. But starting early is going to be key this year. Some of our brands, we've started ramping up their new user acquisition from mid-September, and it still resumes up until now, because now it's the cheaper cost per acquisition period for you until it gets super competitive. So I would say for that weekend itself, it's no longer the peak itself. So throughout the month building up to the peak period, I would say you should have a minimum 15 to 20% headroom. Would you agree, Ash?
Yeah, I think how long's a piece of string, right? So I think that graph that I showed at the beginning of the presentation, if you can, it would be great to look at your brand and see what that looks like over previous years. So you'll obviously have an idea of past peak seasons, hopefully what's happened if you were operating then, and can use that as a base to build off. And then bearing in mind what you mentioned, Bige, that we're going earlier and earlier each year, and peaks are more sustained. But like daily spending can easily be 2x or 5x higher than a typical day. What I would say is, in these instances, depending on the size of your organization, unless you're doing it all, you want to kind of build out a center of excellence. Make sure that you have a regular sync or lines of communication with finance if it's them that needs to sign off and agree on budget, because you don't want to leave sales on the table through constrained budget. So if there's an opportunity to have flexibility, and if you see more than anticipated, being able to quickly act on that is so important.
100%. I guess that's all the questions we had. Thank you so much, Ash, for your time again. We hugely appreciate your efforts here.
It was fun.
And next week, for the episode 3, we are going to have our lovely Ash and Serena from our SEO team to touch on seasonal success while setting up lasting search wins. They'll be going through the key and top SEO strategies that deliver now and later. Thank you so much, everyone, for dialing in. We'll see you next week.